Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of In the Corner. I'm Cash, and today we have the 150th episode of the show, which is nuts. It's pretty cool, but there's not really anything necessarily special about today. It's not been a particularly crazy week of boxing or UFC. We do have some events this weekend, but we're going to talk about some news at the start, and that is what happened yesterday in Washington, D.C., as the U.S. Senate held a hearing regarding the Ali Revival Act. Nick Khan was there to testify in favor of it. Of course, he's I think, is he the president or CEO of WWE, something like that, of WWE, and is spearheading the Zuffa boxing charge with Dana White. He was there, as well were Oscar De La Hoya and Nico Ali Walsh to argue against it. And from what Oscar De La Hoya said, first of all, I thought that his speech at the actual Senate was really good. I thought that I'm just really impressed by him and Nico for actually being the only two prominent boxing figures to go to Senate and testify against it. You know, like you've got a ton of people in boxing who I'm sure are against this, but they're actually actively trying to make an attempt at protecting the sport, and I think that's really cool and honorable. And yeah, I thought they both did a great job. I liked what Nico Ali Walsh saying, like, look, if you're gonna do this, I want you to take my grandfather's name off of it because this isn't what he wanted. And I thought that was a very bold statement, and I like that. And I was just happy that Oscar went there and was the leading promoter, the only one who's really like truly trying to fight it, at the level that he is. And I thought that his speech was good. I watched that, but he also said that he felt a lot of corruption against him. He felt that it was almost scripted. That like when he walked in, he said they walked into a buzzsaw, and I'm like, man, that's just unfortunate, but ultimately not surprising. We know that this bill is going to get passed, and it's not hard to understand why if you understand, the government, the administration, and Dana White's relation to said administration, friends in high places, it's going to get passed. There's not even like a question. I'd be shocked if it doesn't. And I've thought this for a year. But again, I thought that it was cool that they went there to fight it. Nick Khan had some statements, which I mean, he just kind of lied. I know there were some lies that were just like, no matter what, though there was just lies. The one that I saw that somebody pointed out was how he said, like how many boxers fight, what they fight, like how many of them even fight twice a year. And I'm like, dude, I know that you're from WWE, not UFC, but you're over here praising the UFC model, which Nick Khan has said multiple times, talked about the UFC model, saying the best always fight the best when that isn't the case with the title shots now. And you look at the champions, how many times did Ilia Topuria fight in 2025? How many times did Tom Aspinall fight in 2025? How many times did Hamzat fight in 2025? How many times did Volkanovski fight in 2025? The answer to all of those questions is one. You do have the cases like Marab or Pereira who will fight 3, 4 times a year, and they're enigmas. But the guys, even like Islam, he's fighting twice a year, maybe if it's a good year. He fought once a year in 2024. He's probably going to fight once a year this year, I would bet. So it's just like the activity in boxing champions versus UFC champions is actually far better in boxing champions. Like, it's not even a question. Something like that. He's just up there telling all these guys, and they're just going to eat it up when he has no knowledge of the sport that he's supposedly going to run. And I mean, I saw some others point out like this is better for the billionaires, not the fighters, because it is. Oscar De La Hoya is saying like, look, you're saying that we can either operate as a traditional promotional company or as a UBO, Unified. What is it? I don't know what the actual U stands for in the boxing organization, but anyways, they're their own thing, their own promoter, and they don't have to follow under the Ali Act rules where you have to disclose the money. So essentially, the traditional promoters are under transparency. Nothing's a secret. Zuffa comes in, they can pay the fighters however much they want, however little they want, and they make all of it back. So it just sucks to see how broken of a sport for the fighters that the UFC is, and I hate to think that that's going to become what boxing is, because boxing has always put the fighters first in this regard, or not always, but has recently since this act was introduced, and I think it works. So I don't know. I'm just kind of prepared for it to get past, and that's that. But let's go ahead. Let's talk about the fights we've got coming up this weekend. There was actually two cards in the past 36 hours or so, both of which I really wanted to watch but wasn't able to, just because of the times of the day that they were on. I had a very busy last 2 days. So last night, I finally go sit down to open up UFC Fight Pass, which I paid a $10 subscription for. I did not have it already. I had it last year, and I canceled it. I resubscribed just to watch the Jason Maloney fight, him and Andre Donovan in Australia, just to find that it's not on the app. Now, I know that beforehand I looked and it was on the app before the live stream had started. I'm guessing that it was still, people were still able to watch it live, but they do not have a full event replay on demand on the app, which is really, really annoying because that was my plan. I'm like, oh man, I'm just going to, at the end of the day, I'm going to go and watch that fight card, and it's not on there. And to my knowledge, it has still not been added back. I don't know if they ever will. I mean, it's not really the biggest of their concerns, I'm sure, but to me it matters because I was literally, I mean, I just lost $10, so I was just watching it for that. But anyways, yeah, so I don't really have any thoughts on the actual fights. I couldn't even really find highlights of it. I heard that Jason Maloney, I mean, he won a unanimous decision. I heard it was fairly wide. Apparently Donovan started really aggressive and then just kind of faded in the back half. So, I mean, yeah, we all expected Maloney to win this fight. He's now on a 2-fight win streak off those losses in the other year. We'll see where he goes from here. He's obviously targeting a title shot, and he's doing it that under the IBF. This fight was for the IBF Intercontinental Championship, so he'll have a decent rating with them. I think that it's an easier title to try and get a shot at, just because the IBF is always so, they're always giving you your, they're always actually having people fight for the titles. The title shots are actually happening. Jose Salas Reyes is the champion with the IBF. Let's see if he ends up fighting Maloney or somebody else. I don't think he's fighting Maloney, but you know how it is. So that's that. I know that Connor Wallace got a stoppage. He's fun to watch. I wish I could have seen it. Ben Mahoney, who I do like a lot too, he apparently had a closer decision win over Dan Hill. And then Max McIntyre had a stoppage. It seemed like it was a pretty fun card. And I like that they were on UFC Fight Pass, but unfortunately, can't actually watch it. So it is what it is. Now it gets even funnier. Today there was an IBA Pro card in Russia, and main event is an IBF lightweight title eliminator for the number 2 position. And I go to watch this one right after it ends. The live stream, the video got taken down because of a copyright strike. So now I can't watch that one either. So that's amazing. IBA does usually post their fights on YouTube after, so it's not a big a deal. But I did see that Artur Subkankulov stopped Bakodur Usmanov in the 12th round. Apparently it was a great fight where Usmanov just kind of faded throughout. I'm not really as familiar with Subkankulov. I know that Usmanov, I remember him when he beat Maxi Hughes in December. That was a close fight, but I thought that he won. And now here Subkankulov is stopping him in the final round, and he is number 2 with the IBF. So number 1 will be decided between Albert Bell and Andy Cruz. And then I guess that we'll see the winners, the winner of that fight Subkankulov for maybe the vacant IBF title. We'll see if Muratai stays at 135, and if not, we'll see eventually him get his title shot. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then moving on from there, let's talk about the fights that haven't happened yet. So tomorrow night in Las Vegas, Matchroom Boxing is back in the United States. DAZN's first real card in the U.S. since mid-March. It's weird. But anyways, main event, Jarrell Miller, Lenier Pero. This main event is a title eliminator for the WBA Heavyweight Championship. So winner, I guess, will become mandatory for Alexander Usyk. But, I mean, honestly, when I hear WBA mandatory, those words don't go together because they just never actually call their mandatories. So I don't really know. But it should maybe be an interesting fight. I feel like this one could go overweight. I'm leaning Jarrell Miller just because I think that he's fought at a higher level. Lenier Pero did not impress me against Jordan Thompson. I know he's meant to be this huge, monster, but I'm kind of prepared for heavyweight slop. 12 rounds of 2 very big guys and not necessarily big muscular wise, just kind of leaning on each other. I hope I'm wrong. Hope we get a knockout, but yeah, you have to favor Miller in this fight, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Pero gets it done. I just wasn't as impressed with Pero, and I thought Miller's been decent lately. Also on that card, the matchroom debut of Alan Chavez, who is meant to be a big puncher. So excited to see that. He's fighting Miguel Medano. That's the co-main event. Freudis Rojas versus Damian Sosa on the card. And then Nishant Dev as well is returning for his 6th professional fight. First one in 8 rounds. So that's the main card on DAZN. You got a UFC Apex event. As far as Apex cards go, this isn't bad. It's a fantastic main event for the Apex. Aljamain Sterling versus Youssef Zalal. The winner of this is in a really good position for the title shot at 145 pounds. Obviously, they're not getting it next or even next, but they're right there. They win an eliminator after this. Maybe then they're at the mandatory. But I think it's a good fight. I think that you could really go either way. I know that Youssef Zalal is a slight favorite. He is riding a higher win streak. He's got a lot of great finishes since returning to the UFC, but I'm going to pick Aljo just because I don't know why, but Aljo looked really good against Brian Ortega. I thought that he kind of beat Movsar Evloev. I think I'm in the minority there, but I thought that he won that fight. So, I don't know. I think that the best Aljo, if he can show up, should beat Youssef Zalal. And I feel like we've seen a lot more of these, old guard versus new guard fights, if you can even call it that. The vet usually wins. So, yeah, I'm picking Aljo. Co-main event, Norma Dumont versus Jocelyn Edwards. Both of these women are riding pretty good win streaks. Jocelyn Edwards has been finishing everyone she meets. Norma Dumont has been beating everybody she meets. She's really close to a title shot, and I think that she should be able to beat Jocelyn Edwards. I'm picking her here. And then, Kayla Harrison, Amanda Nunes. If the winner of that decides to retire, then I would be perfectly expecting Norma Dumont to be in a vacant title fight. Before that, Rafa Garcia versus Alexander Hernandez. I think Hernandez gets that one off the back of the betting scandal. Adrian Luna Martinetti is making his debut against Davey Grant. Martinetti was part of that super, hyped up Dana White Contender Series fight that everybody says was like the best thing ever. So I'm picking him to win that fight, but it's definitely a good challenge in the debut. Montel Jackson is facing my boy Raoni Barcelos. Barcelos has been upsetting everyone. And I actually do kind of think that Montel Jackson is in a good position to win this fight, but I'm not picking against Barcelos. He's riding off of a 3-fight win streak in 2025. All 3 of those were upsets. You cannot doubt the guy no matter what. I'm picking him to enter the rankings. Montel Jackson is ranked number 14. I may be wrong, but I got it right with Barcelos. And then Marcus Buchecha is going to fight Ryan Spann in the main card opener. Buchecha has not been impressive in the UFC, so I'm picking Ryan Spann there. Rodolfo Vieira, I definitely think he's going to beat Eric McConico. Jackson McVeigh and Cedricas Dumas. It feels like the loser of this fight has to get kicked out of the UFC, and that's kind of what they're doing. I think McVeigh probably beats him, but I would be fine if either got cut. Mayra Bueno Silva. She's back fighting Michelle Montague. She is a plus 320 underdog. I mean, literally, she had a title shot at the beginning of 2024. Since then, it's been nothing but losses, and it's probably going to continue, and she may even get cut from the UFC afterwards. It's like a 3-4 fight win streak, something like that. Jafel Fielho, huge favorite over Cody Durden. Francis Marshall, big favorite over Lucas Brennan. It should be a pretty fun Apex event, hopefully. Some other boxing this weekend. Jacob Bank is back off of knocking out William Skoll, doing the Lord's work in boxing terms. Everyone's favorite fighter, William Skoll. I thought that Jacob Bank looked really good there. I think he's close to a title shot. I think he's like a top 10 guy, 168 maybe. So he's fighting Paulinus Injolonimu. I totally butchered that. Who was 20-1. So a decent record on him. His only loss comes to Simone Zackenhuber, who was of course meant to fight Troy Williamson. He fought on the Netflix card the other week. So, yeah, I definitely think Bank will win the fight, but we'll see, man. And then also the ProBox TV is going to be showing a fight from Mexico on Saturday, headlined by Oseas Lucero, who's been a guy on their air, fought Vlad Hernandez. He's fought Joshua Anton. Now he's fighting Oziel Santoyo, who is 21-5, so I may watch that. And then you got BKFC hosting another fight night in Clearwater, Florida. Main event is Quentin Gaskins versus Matt Goimanis. It's the replacement main event, but we'll take it. Should be pretty fun. Co-main event, Royal Ryan Reber returns. He's going to be fighting Joshua Oxendine. That's a fun fight. Crystal Van Vick, I think, is fighting Kat Paparaki. So, I don't know. It should be fun. I like BKFC, and it's some Friday night action. That's all the fights we have coming up this weekend. And I didn't get the chance to talk about it yet because, of course, I haven't done an episode since then. Lawrence Okolie-Tony Yoka was meant to be this weekend. And out of nowhere, on Monday, I think it was it Monday or Tuesday? I think it was Monday. We hear the very unfortunate news that Lawrence Okolie has tested positive for a banned substance under VADA. And we don't hear immediately that the fight is canceled. We hear we'll let you know. And so it seems like, okay, the fight is canceled. Is the card going forward? They say they're trying to get Tony Yoka a replacement opponent. They want him to fight a British opponent, and that's mainly because this is a DAZN pay-per-view in France. They want to, if they're going to do it, they need to have a really big fight headlining, Okolie Yoka level. Martin McCauley threw his hat out there. David Adelaide offered to step in. They decided to do neither of those. Guess they wouldn't work, which I think they should have. I thought they should have just kept the card going with Bakary Samake as the main event. From what I've heard, Samake is like a bigger draw in France than Yoka is. But regardless, they canceled the entire card. Don't even downgrade it. They canceled the entire thing, and we are left with nothing. Which really sucks because I was so excited to see the French crowd. I think they have one of the most liveliest combat sports crowds out of any country, and I was really excited to watch that one. I thought it was a decent heavyweight fight. I thought the card was looking okay, and yeah, now we don't get anything on Saturday from France, and I really feel for the undercard fighters because they prepared for all this. And look, say what you will about Queensberry and Matchroom, they have two different ideologies here, where Queensberry saying, no, we're not going to do a subpar show. We're not going to carry on with it with something meh. We only are going to do the absolute highest quality, which I can respect. But you also have to respect Matchroom. Last week got so much flack for their Ben Whitaker card and how poor it was. But, dude, they showed up and they made sure everybody got paid and they put on a boxing card. And it was actually a very fun night of fights. Every fight on that main card was entertaining. So say what you will about each of them. But Matchroom didn't let their fighters down. I feel like Queensberry kind of let their fighters down in this situation. I understand it was out of their circumstances and they didn't have the means to do it, but it just really sucks. Tony Yoka says that he's been told he'll be returning on either the May 9th Wardley Dubois card or the May 16th Alan Hrgovic card. I hope he's on either of those. All those events are completely booked up, though, with fights, so we'll see if he actually is on either of them, but I hope he is. And I hope he's fighting someone decent. Okay, let's get into some news. So Dimitri Bivol, Michael Eifert, thankfully, is going to be on DAZN. This is great news. I expected it to be on there, but I was a little bit worried, just with how boxing is. It's in Russia. I don't know if there's a broadcast partner that RCC has for here. Are they going to figure something out? And they did. So it's going to be on DAZN, and it seems like they're going to promote it pretty well. So I'm very excited for that. Speaking of DAZN, there are rumors, and I say rumors because I haven't seen it much, but there's rumors that DAZN and PBC are finalizing a 3-year exclusive broadcast deal to begin after the David Benavidez-Zurdo Ramirez fight. This wouldn't really surprise me. I think DAZN is making a huge effort this year to get all of the top promoters. They added Top Rank. They re-signed with Golden Boy. They even had a little stint with Boxer where they had the Francesca Hennessy fight in January was also on DAZN. So maybe they've working out something there. And you definitely know that DAZN is who PBC will be talking to when their deal with Prime Video is up. It's been about 2.5 years now of PBC on Prime. It's not what we were hoping it would be, and we didn't know how many years that deal was set for. Maybe it was just around 2 or 3 years. So, DAZN and PBC have worked together on cards like this May 2nd one. Maybe they decide to just keep it going. I would like that if we're all in one spot, and it eliminates the pay-per-view because you have DAZN Ultimate, which Benavidez-Zurdo was on. So all remains to be seen. I hope so. And I think it would be awesome for boxing, but I also feel like PBC may be asking a very high price that DAZN is not willing to go for. Remains to be seen. Speaking of that Benavidez-Zurdo card, we had an update. It's now going to be a 5-fight pay-per-view, which is unusual for PBC, but I love this. So Jorge Chavez versus Tito Sanchez is going to be kicking off the show. Now, both those are Golden Boy fighters, and what a fight that is. After January, they both had fights in January, and I was saying, I want to see this fight. They both at super bantamweight, and they're making it. I love that. I love the Golden Boys making that fight. I feel like it's a great fight, and it's going to kick off this card now, both Mexican or Mexican-Americans. And also, Isaac Lucero is now going to be fighting Ismael Flores instead, as Alan Sandoval is out of the fight. But yeah, you got 5 fights right there. You got Oscar Duarte and Angel Fierro. And of course, co-main event is going to be Resendiz versus Munguia. It's a really solid pay-per-view card. Looking forward to it. Speaking of Golden Boy, they are set to start their mediation process with Virgil Ortiz on July 14th. I hope that they can be as least messy as possible so that we can just continue with everything. Maybe they can work together. But most importantly, Virgil can get back in the ring. He's the guy who's having to face the brunt of this. I know he's the one that brought on the charges, but, I just feel bad for him because he's not going to be able to fight for probably around a year, if not more, when he's in the prime of his career. So it sucks. Richardson Hitchins has announced that he is going to be vacating his IBF super lightweight title and move up to 147. Now, of course, We kind of saw this coming. Hitchins had talked about a move to welterweight for a long time. He said after his planned fight with Duarte in January, that's what he was going to do. He makes weight, and then he gets sick afterwards, doesn't continue with the fight. Then Hitchins signs with Zuffa Boxing, who do not have a 140-pound division. They only have a 147-pound division, and they don't work with the sanctioning bodies. So it made perfect clear, either he's going to vacate or he's going to get stripped. I'm really, really happy that he made the right decision and just straight up, vacated the belt himself, as opposed to all of the drama that Jai Patai had to go through trying to hold on to the belt. So I really appreciate Hitchins being smart and doing what's right for the IBF, doing what's right for himself, and just, letting them carry on. Now, of course, the IBF sent an offer of availability to both Lindolfo Delgado, who is the mandatory number 1 challenger, and Teofimo Lopez, who I think was ranked number 5. Number 2 is vacant, that spot. And then 3 and 4 are Keyshawn Davis and Oscar Duarte, who both have fights scheduled. So they sent an offer to Teofimo and Lindolfo Delgado. I was kind of hoping that Teo would take it. It's a pretty easy route back to a championship. But, again, he's the guy who's talked a lot about, I want to go up to welterweight. And he said, today, he said, yeah, I'm not doing it. Good luck to Lindolfo. I want to be a welterweight. I'm going up to welterweight. And I'm cool with it. He's been at 140 for a while, and he's talked about going up to 147 for a while. So no complaints from me. Looks like they're going to move down to Arthur Bjarsanov. He is next in the rankings, and I assume that he will take it. He just fought a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. But so he's definitely available, and they've been smart with matching. The Tigers have been really smart with working their guys up the rankings. And yeah, so it looks like it will be Delgado versus Bjarsanov for the vacant IBF title, which is a pretty good fight. I'm looking forward to that, and I'd probably be favoring Bjarsanov. Moving on from there, Arsenbek Makhmudov has called out Anthony Joshua to fight in November because he was promised to fight AJ. Last year they promised to him. I don't know if they promised it to him. I like Makhmudov just being like, frick, man, you know what? I'm just trying to cash out. Yo, AJ, I fought Fury. You want to see how you want to stop me? See if you can do better than him. And he's literally offering to be the replacement for Fury, saying like, no, don't fight Fury in November. Fight me instead. It's like, no, dude, AJ's going to fight before. And then we're hearing the target date is July 25th, which is also the target date for Moses Atauma. Apparently, he's going to be headlining the O2 Arena on July 25th. We don't know who against. Hopefully, it's a good opponent. I think he's got a lot of great options out there, and I hope that it is somebody in the top 15, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not. But if those dates are the same and AJ's fighting in Saudi and Moses fighting in London at the same time, that's going to be a big issue. So I hope that they're not both on that same date. But anyways, yeah, AJ has no reason to fight Makhmudov now. It made sense if that was going to be his comeback, but no. Francis Ngannou says that he still wants to fight John Jones before he retires. Look, it's crazy that he shouldn't think that's going to happen because he's not going to be able to get back into the UFC, and that's who John Jones, has been with. However, John Jones just recently retired, quote unquote. Seems like he's pretty pissed with the UFC. Ngannou's fighting on MVP MMA for his next fight. If MVP decides to stay in MMA, what I'm doing if I'm them, I am throwing the biggest bag I can at John Jones because he wants that $30 million. And I think there's a solid chance he will take $30 million to fight Francis Ngannou on Netflix. And Ngannou would take it if he got a big bag. So, dude, if MVP can deliver Jones versus Ngannou on Netflix when the UFC couldn't, that would be massive. They're already putting on the biggest MMA event outside of the UFC maybe ever. And if they can do an even bigger fight and do Jones and Ngannou, holy crap. They are doing something, and I love it. I love it. I think that's the move. I think it'd be really smart of them to do that. Speaking of MVP, unfortunately, Shadasia Green shared that she had a brain bleed in her fight last week. It's very unfortunate. It sounds like she's recovering well. It was a very scary night. She just, out of nowhere, just seemed like she didn't want to be fighting anymore, was really tired, and they were struggling to keep her awake. So just reminds you that boxing is a dangerous game, but good thing that she is doing better. Mauricio Suleiman had some words I don't agree with. He called Crawford a coward. He said he retired cowardly. I think that's just because Crawford didn't pay his sanctioning fees. But I'm like, dude, he'd done literally everything. He'd beaten everybody. He beat Canelo. He's a 3-division undisputed male champion. Nobody's ever done that. So, yeah, I think he's out of line making that comment. I think that Suleiman has not handled the entire sanctioning body, Zuffa boxing drama well. I think he's made a lot of remarks and a lot of moves that just do not leave a good taste with the WBC. Eddie Hearn says that that Devin Haney is asking for way too much money and that he won't sign him and doesn't think anybody will with the prices he's asking for. I'm assuming that Devin Haney wants unification, and maybe he was talking to Eddie Hearn about Lewis Crocker or somebody big. And Eddie's just telling him, like, dude, you're asking. Apparently, he made like 10, 12 million from these last few fights with Riyadh season. And he's expecting to make that for a Lewis Crocker fight that's not on Riyadh season. And, like, there's just not that much money in that fight. So I understand what Eddie's saying, and I can also see why Devin is wanting a lot. I mean, like, he got paid probably like $5+ million just to fight Jose Ramirez. In his comeback fight when Ramirez is on like a 2-fight losing streak or something. So it's like, that never made sense. That made no sense. So him getting that much money, he's like, well, if I'm going to fight another champion, if I'm going to fight this guy who's really good, I need way more. And they're like, no. And this is the issue with the Saudi Arabians coming into boxing and Turki Al-Sheikh, is that they overinflated the market. They paid the fighters way too much, and now you can't get fights done. You can't get fights done without it, or at least not fighters satisfied, especially guys like Devin Haney, who are so popular and such big fighters in America who negotiate such high prices for their contracts with Riyadh season. They think that they're actually worth that amount when everybody's getting paid more than they're worth. And when everybody gets paid more than they're worth, nobody is actual worth. Saw some noise on Twitter today about a potential Sebastian Fundora, a Jermall Charlo fight in negotiations for later this year. And I really, really hope this isn't true, because Jermall Charlo was not fought in close to 3 years, and when he did, that was 168 pounds. He has absolutely no business walking into a world title fight. And Sebastian Fundora, I mean, dude, he's had such a disappointing title run already. Like, wins the title, wins both titles, defends it a year later against Cordell Booker, horrible opponent, then vacates the WBO to avoid a Zayas fight, rematches Tim Tszyu, which was actually okay, but then he completely dominates him, fights Keith Thurman, who also did not deserve a title shot in the slightest and was the star of the past. And now he's going to do the same thing with Charlo when he just said, like, no, I want to have big fights, I want to have unifications. They need to try and really make Fundora versus Josh Kelly happen so that we can have the winner of that fight the winner of Boots versus Zayas. Because on one hand, you got Boots and Zayas fighting for greatness, and you have Fundora, who seems like a really good and genuine guy who wants those kind of fights, being forced by PBC to enter all these fights where he's easily going to win and just fight, guys from the past. And so, no, I have no interest in Fundora versus Charlo happening. I hope that it does not. I hope that they can, that this is just a rumor and it's not true, because it's just a terrible idea. Pierce O'Leary apparently is set to headline the 3 Arena on August 1st. Seems like Queensberry's putting a lot of stock behind him now, and they're ready to push him as a world-level fighter, not just European. And I love that, because I think he's super good, and I'm curious who they match him up with at 140 pounds in August. Speaking of Queensberry, Agat Kabayel, we know he's meant to have a fight in May in Germany, potentially a stadium show. He decided to scrap that because he's waiting for Alexander Usyk. He knows that if Usyk beats Rico, which we're all expecting him to, he must defend the WBC title against Kabayel. Otherwise, he has to vacate that. So, Kabayel is essentially saying my next fight will be for a world title. Whether Usyk, decides to defend it against him or Usyk vacates, Kabayel will fight for the vacant. Actually, he'll just be upgraded. So, yeah, I think that Kabayel is probably a smart move to not risk it, but I also, he hasn't been super active, and I love the idea of him being active and doing a stadium show in Germany where he had such great fans in January, doing a stadium show in May. Yeah, would have liked that, but I'm cool with this plan. I think it's smart. Corey Sandhagen versus Mario Batista is reportedly set for July 11th on International Fight Week, UFC 329. This is a great bantamweight fight. Just a great fight. Makes a lot of sense. Corey's coming off the loss to Merab. Mario Batista leading off that win over Oliveira, Vinicius Oliveira, in February. Then you get these two matching up. It's a good fight. It's a really good fight, like top 7, 6 of the division. It's cool. UFC announced officially they will be back in Baku, Azerbaijan on June 27th. And also there's rumors that they're coming to Oklahoma City on July 18th. First time in a while they've been there, I believe. So, yeah, looking forward to that. And let's just talk about it now. They announced a lot of the fights for UFC Vegas 118. That is the one headlined by Bilal Muhammad versus Gabriel Bonfim. Weird fight already. But, I mean, the card is weirdly stacked. Everyone's talking about it. Now, I don't have all of the fights, but just looking at the top few fights that have been announced for the undercard, Brendan Allen versus Edmund Shabazian. Great fight. Iwo Baraniewski. Love that guy. He's back against Billy Alicana. You've got Bryce Mitchell back in action. He's fighting Victor Henry. Emmanuel Rodriguez versus Matt Schnell at flyweight. And then you've also got Marcus McGee versus Jacob Viclas. Viclas is the guy who kicked Patchy Mix outside of the UFC. And you got Bruno Silva. He's back. He's fighting Edgar Chairez. That's a really fun fight. Jordan Levitt taking on Joe Anderson Brito. Fares Ziam, who's ranked, is fighting Tom Nolan. I mean, dude, this fight card is ridiculous for an Apex one. I understand it's Bilal in the main event, so you don't want to put it in an arena maybe, but like, dude, that's a great fight night. That's way better than the Winnipeg card we had the other week. So I don't know, man. Darren Till is set to make his BKFC debut on May 30th. We knew this. Opponent has been confirmed to be Aaron Chalmers. I'm not too mad at it. It's about what I expected. He's not going to go in there and fight Mike Perry. He's going to wet his toes. He's going to fight a big name, semi-big name BKFC British guy, and that is Aaron Chalmers. Super tatted up. He fought Floyd Mayweather in an exhibition. He's kind of a character in that sense, I guess. But, he's just kind of been around, and I think it's a solid enough fight. I think Darren Till's going to have a pretty good amount of size on him, and I expect him to probably stop him. But, yeah, really looking forward to that. I mean, that's a great fight card they're building in Birmingham on May 30th. Speaking of Floyd Mayweather, his next exhibition has actually been announced officially with a date. He's going to be fighting Mike Zambides, who I believe is a kickboxer, June 27th in Athens, Greece. I don't like this. I think that obviously Floyd's going to go into it and is going to dominate, but I think this is really seen this as a warm-up fight because he is going to be fighting Manny Pacquiao in September. I don't want to risk it with any cuts or anything, less than 3 months out from the fight. But I think that he'll probably be fine. I think that he really needs a warm-up. He hasn't had an exhibition in almost 2 years. So, this is just his way to, I guess, get the ring rust off before he goes into his first professional fight in a decade. Yeah. Also announced, Amari Jones will be fighting Vincenzo Gualtieri May 22nd in San Jose. Co-main event will be Robin Safar. Dude, I really, really like this. I like Golden Boy taking their fighters and saying, you know what, we're going to elevate you. We're going to give you a main event because they just signed Amari Jones. He's on a brilliant run with them, 2-0, 2 knockouts. I feel like they're really raising the star power, and now they're going to bring him to San Jose, have him headline against a really good opponent. I mean, Gualtieri, maybe not the best world champion we've ever seen, but he was world champion like 2 years ago. He's not that far removed from a title, run. Short one, sure. Of course, his only loss is to Janibek, who is the guy at 160. So this is a really big step up for Amari Jones. He wins this. He's going to be in great position with the IBF. Probably will be mandatory for the winner of the vacant title between Aaron McKenna and Otinoso Olija. So he was a guy that I just saw as a prospect. And then he signs with Golden Boy, and they're automatically turning him into a contender, keeping him active. I love it. Speaking of turning somebody else into a contender, Robin Safar, I hope he's in a good fight, man, because, again, he's like a top 10, top 15 cruiserweight. His last performance was not very exciting. They need him, or not very impressive at least. They need to get him into a good fight, get him a good win, and then he can really be very close to a title shot. So hope that's on this card. Also, for June 27th, the dates come up a few times this episode. AJ McKee will fight Salamat Isbulayev in San Diego on June 27th. I think that's a decent fight. Usbaliv's, he's been looking decent. AJ McKee coming off that win over Boric in Madrid. It's a good main event. AJ McKee is one of their bigger stars in the U.S., so it makes sense you want to have him headline. I'm just a little bit confused on what we're doing with this title picture. Like, does PFL have a featherweight champion right now? Maybe I'm crazy and they do, and it's just completely going over my head, but I don't think that PFL has a featherweight champion. And this is their, I feel like, is it their second featherweight main event they're having without a champion? I don't know. But they need to get a featherweight champion sorted because, they need to get all their champions sorted. I like these fights. And I know they're just headlining with whatever the biggest fight they can get is. But, we need to get this title picture figured out. And then we can really start making these fights. But just having, fight nights, UFC fight night level fights instead of just a championship is kind of weird to me. Tai Tuivasa will instead be fighting Louis Sutherland next weekend in Perth as opposed to Sean Sheriff, who was out. I mean, doesn't matter. I mean, he's going to be fighting a trash opponent either way. If Ty loses this one, it's wraps, man. And what, is he on a 6-fight losing streak? He's got to be out if he loses this, but I do think he should win it. Kimina Jarko, for weirdly, did not accept the IBF eliminator against Bakram Murtazaliyev. So now Brandon Adams has been ordered to fight Bakram, and he may be getting back into a title shot after failing to make weight, where, Jarko did, and I'm really surprised that Jarko didn't accept this. It makes no sense why he didn't. Maybe he just thought that Bakram is too big of a risk for the fight. Maybe it's not working out with this, for an eliminator. Maybe it's not working with the schedule. Maybe he thought he was just gonna get to face Kelly, on his own without having to do an eliminator. But I don't know. I feel like you're missing out on an opportunity when you had it right there. Now Brandon Adams is getting that opportunity. So the Kyrgyzstan event that Kameda Promotions is doing is back on. It was meant to be last weekend. Now it's going to be May 23rd and May 24th. May 24th, you're going to have both Luis Nunes versus Kaionosuke Kameda for the vacant WBA interim featherweight championship. Mirko Cuello was interim featherweight champion. He's now number one again. I guess that he vacated it just so they can have somebody else there. I literally thought he particularly was not interim champion anymore because the WBA was trying to get rid of interim champions, but I don't know. Maybe this means that Figueroa versus Cuello is closer to happening than we think. But yeah, that's a decent fight. I don't know if Kameda's in an interim championship, but whatever. And then speaking of WBA interim, on the same card, super flyweight, you're going to have David Jimenez versus Ayumu Sana. Winner of that is, again, in great position to either get upgraded or just fight Bam Rodriguez for what could be the undisputed. But at this point, I don't think that Bam is going to come back down to fight them. He's going up to 118, then back down to fight the IBF champion, go for undisputed, then he's back up to 118. So I don't think that he's going to have any time to fight David Jimenez. But, two interim title fights. Kameda Promotions also announced that Luis Nery versus Jarrell Casimero, which was initially meant to be in Kyrgyzstan, will actually be June 6th in Japan on what is becoming a loaded card. Yabuki versus Calixto, Garcia versus Maloney, Nery versus Casimero. I heard that Angeletti is fighting, I can't remember the other guy's name, but he's fighting he's fighting in like a bantamweight eliminator. So, these are great fights being lined up for the June 6th card from a promoter who's not the biggest promoter around. I'm really excited for. Two world title fights. Nery Casimero, I think, is a title eliminator. I'm down. Speaking of 122 pounds, Mirjan Akhmadaliev is going to be returning May 29th in his home country of Uzbekistan, fighting the 27-1 Hegli Mosqueda. Definitely got to think that's a win for MJ. And then he gets back into the title picture once Inoue vacates. He can probably get another title shot pretty good. It was a really disappointing performance from him against Inoue, so hopefully it looks decent here. MVP announced yesterday a slew of new fighter signings, as we were expecting, and I feel like MVP just signs every woman in the game. They got everyone. But when we look at the ones they signed yesterday, they signed the current 108-pound unified champion Evelyn Bermudez. They signed current WBC light flyweight champion Lourdes Juarez, who I think is fighting on their upcoming card. They also signed super flyweight IBF champion Irma Garcia, who just had that great win over Emma Dolan, stopped her in a big upset. Mayeli Flores, so that's three champions they just signed. Mayeli Flores, who just fought Ellie Scottney. Dude, she was great in that fight. And now she's going to get to be officially signed with them. They signed Roxy Verduzco, who, of course, has been on ProBox TV, but now she's been signed with them as well. And then Brittany Sims, who's the WBA #1 challenger at bantamweight. So maybe that's a potential Shanika Johnson opponent. MVP, their signings just don't stop. We also heard a report today that on June 13th, O'Shea Jones will be rematching Elia Carranza for the IBF, what division is she? Super welterweight championship, I believe. Now, look, I actually went to their first fight in Atlanta, and I thought that it was fairly a clean win for Jones. I know that it was a split decision. One judge gave Carranza every round, which I remember that was shocking to hear because I thought that Jones won 7 or 8 rounds. I didn't think it was that close, and they had it not close at all, but in the wrong direction. I was appalled by that scorecard, but that alone is getting her a rematch. I think they just don't really have a lot of people for her to fight. I heard rumors this one could be in Orlando. That'd be pretty cool at the Crib Royale. We know MVP likes going there. But I got to be honest, if this is the main event, it's definitely a step down from the first couple cards. Caroline Dubois, Terry Harper, Alicia Baumgardner, Bo-Mi Shin, and then Stephanie Hahn, Holly Holm too, with Amanda Serrano in the co-main event, and these other co-main events they've had. This definitely isn't on that level. But they're staying real active. This is just going to be 2 weeks after their May 30th card. So they're putting on events every month, and you have to respect that. Hopefully it's still a good lineup, the actual card. Maybe that's not even main event, but that's all I've got for today. Thank you all so much for listening. If you have 150 episodes, is crazy. But going to do another episode probably Monday, I'm thinking, recapping the weekend's action. Hopefully something crazy happens. Hopefully Miller vs. Pero is not a slot fest. Sterling versus Zalal isn't too boring. I think Sterling could end up wrestling a lot, but hopefully it's exciting. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Peace out.